Welcome to another live stream, my friends. Bitcoin has continued pushing to the upside. What a sight for sore eyes. So let's take a look at a few charts and check some levels to watch for and that sort of thing. Thumbs up if you've been appreciating these live streams. Thumbs up if you love seeing the price climbing. Thumbs up if you're surviving and thriving in these markets. And just thumbs up if you're happy to be here, my friends. With that, let's hop right into my Bitcoin 4-hour chart here. And guys, a few things jumping out at me on this chart for starters. I mean, the first thing that I notice is this triangle that I was talking about in yesterday's stream. I have mixed feelings about it because you guys know that I had mentioned that I really like getting a third touch point on a trend line before getting a breakout to consider it valid. Now, full disclosure, if we zoom into the 1 hour, we did basically get that pretty much perfectly. Let's just zoom in a little bit. And you can see that, yeah, we basically got our third touch point on the hourly with that little pullback, even a red candle there. So I'm considering that a valid third touch point, and then we have broke that. So at this point, I mean, even if we come back down a little bit, I would really like to see this old resistance flip into new support. That would be lovely to see from just a pattern breakout trading perspective here. Now, I don't typically trade breakouts all that often, but the way this is looking right now to ladder into something, I mean, basically, as long as we can hold our lows kind of here, I mean, ideally, we flip this resistance into support on its own, whether we have to test it a few times or not. I would really love to hold above that level. But even if we end up coming back down a little bit and then reclaiming it, wouldn't be the end of the world either, in my opinion. So just looking at the 4-hour, I mean, let's take a look. Again, I don't typically trade these breakout patterns anymore, but I mean, it does have its time and a place, and just looking for confluence for where we ended up breaking out of this. And I mentioned this on stream yesterday to look for, does it make sense that we could end up retesting all-time highs for several different reasons? And yeah, guys, in my opinion, I mean, the fact that not only did we have this resistance I've been talking about for a long time, that it's very possible we end up basically retesting resistance after that massive capitulation we had a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it still makes sense, even if that was a bearish structure break, that we could still end up getting a retest of resistance after that. So often we see structure broken and then some sort of a retest, which is basically the whole foundation behind my Stuber Fibs strategies. So, I mean, it would still make sense to do that on a longer time frame like this as well. And to see that if we have this measured move of this triangle, like I was talking about, from where we've broken out from, I mean, yeah, in theory, we could be going right back to all-time highs to retest that basically. And let's just take a look. I mean, for one, that is a resistance level that I have on my radar, just strictly from, a structure point of view, right? I can also bring up the ALGO master indicator, and it has the exact same Stuber Fib pull that I do. So it's outlining the same resistance pockets, right? Basically starting a little above 120K, actually about 120.9K would be the 786. But that resistance that I've been warning about basically goes all the way up to 130K. It's very possible we end up getting that because we have got that type of a setup twice already on the macro timeframes, right? Where we get those swing fails just above our highs and then get rejected. We could end up having the exact same thing a third time in a row. Or honestly, I mean, maybe we even just continue pushing to the upside. We break through that level and continue staircasing higher, in which case the 4-year trend gets broken and we continue going to the upside. I mean, that is also a possibility that I don't want to rule out, because anything is possible in this market. And a couple weeks ago, that Friday, when we had that big liquidation event, that really should have put things into perspective for everybody, that anything can happen, no matter how much you think it can or can't happen. Anything can happen in this market. And those of you who have been in cryptos for more than one market cycle, I mean, that's just a fact. So now let's look for, okay, it makes sense. A little bit of confluence for a measured move would also line up with that resistance. Let's bring up the liquidations band, or the liquidations levels indicator here, MDX liquidations. And notice that we do have a bunch of high leverage liquidations up at that level. And I've been talking about that basically since we dumped. ever since taking my long down here at about 100 and what was it, 104.8K, still have a 40% of that position running in case we end up going back to the upside of this range, right? That's a beautiful swing position to be in. Absolutely nailed that. Those of you guys in the Telegram, you guys were made well aware of this, you guys. I mentioned right when I was taking my position, basically, and right now it's still running, still have a beautiful position. Aster as well, talked about this in just a couple of streams ago, right at the end of one of my streams, talking about potential support on Aster, and both of those positions right now sitting in beautiful profits, you guys. So if that is something that interests you, you just want to see more examples, how I pull fibs, how I look at market structure, some of my trade setup ideas and that sort of thing, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen, get into my Telegram there. But yeah, guys, like I've been saying for a while, these liquidation levels really line up with the theory that we could go back and test all-time highs. There's liquidity up there. If I was a market maker, I would be looking at grabbing some of that. The one thing why I don't want to get too married to that idea and assume that we have to go up to those levels is because we are starting to, in fact, build a bunch of liquidity below us as well. So at this point, as I've been saying in my last couple streams, we're kind of in the middle of a very large range, and we have liquidations, aka liquidity, on both sides of the price action right now. So absolutely anything is possible. As far as looking for a new swing position, things are obviously risky when we're in the middle of a range like this. But, you know, things don't look too bad for me at this point. It's still, even though on the macro time frame, the midterm time frame, well, more so the macro time frame, I do have my very large concerns with where this market cycle is at. But that didn't stop me from taking longs at my buy levels on both Bitcoin and Aster, just because even though I was feeling bearish at those levels, they were buy levels, right? And at this point, even if things are going to end up macro bearish for the macro time frames, there's still all that liquidity above us. There's still potential for that retest above, and I don't want to rule that out, you guys. As well, looking at the weekly, I have mixed feelings about this one, honestly, you guys. One thing that I really, really like about this weekly chart right now is the fact that this yellow box here, this is basically the exact opposite of what I was talking about, how we had those few liquidity grabs to the upside before absolutely nuking the price, getting those fake outs that blindsided everybody. We now basically on the weekly have the opposite from the underside, right? We ended up going a little bit lower than support, but reclaiming it very quickly. And so far, I mean, this weekly candle is going to close in about 6 hours here. And, you know, it's not looking so bad right now. If I were to pull a fib like this just to look for a typical Stuber fib setup, look for where my invalidations are. I mean, support was never invalidated for me. We never ended up dropping below that 104.5 thousand, which would be my 115 basically on the weekly for this this macro time frame, but more so the micro structure on the weekly, because this is obviously our highest low on the trend, and that's actually being that's giving a lot of weight to these wicks, because I'm basically considering this a high, this a higher high, this is our confirmed higher low. So I mean, we did technically break that level, but since it was just a wick, it makes sense that we get some sort of a bounce there as long as we close this candle bullishly. And so far, it really looks like we're going to. But something to consider with that is, even though it is just a wick, we did technically break that low. And just to retest higher into the range, just to see some sort of a rejection would also make sense, right? So it's not so much that I'm bearish at this point. It's more so that as we climb and get closer to our macro resistance once again, that's where I will be big time being cautious and looking for those hedge short positions again, if nothing else. Just like, you know, the last few big swings here, you guys, we've caught all of these, right? We ended up catching the long here. We caught the short up here. We caught the new long down here. We even caught a short here. I mean, called all these major reversals in the last few swings, basically in the Telegram channel. So again, if you guys just like looking at market structure, not really trading that hopium, not trading fundamentals, just looking at charts for what they are and just trying to keep a level head and be the voice of reason in these markets, because that's what we need in these crazy times here. But yeah, looking at the shorter time frames, you guys, like I said, things not looking so bad, even on the 5-minute chart here. We obviously got this beautiful push through that triangle resistance that I was talking about, my white line here. So even if we end up dropping down, like I was saying, I don't think all hope was be lost, because even using the MDX Trendmaster indicator here for the lower time frame trend, basically as long as we're holding these higher trending buy signals, which obviously at this point, even if we get a sell signal, it's going to be significantly higher. So obviously trending to the upside. That's where if we end up getting a higher buy signal again, I am going to be looking for scalps on that type of signal, because it's a scalp sized risk for a trend sized potential move basically on something like that. So gonna have to see what happens, but yeah, basically as long as we are holding above 111k, I mean, things are looking great for this current pump that we've got going on. So let me know in the chat, how are you guys feeling about the market? Again, if you could do me a favor, if you appreciate my level-headed approach in these crazy markets, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, because it goes a long way on such a new channel like this. And I think this is what the average trader needs more of, is an actual trading channel where you're actually looking, keeping those emotions and those clickbait and all that sort of things at bay, and just looking at market structure for what it is and ignoring all the stressful noise. Because let's face it, trying to understand how the entire global economy is going to react to certain announcements and stuff like that, you never know how things are going to react or how the market makers are going to use that or anything like that. So that's why I just let the charts do the talking. If fundamentals, I don't want to say that fundamentals don't matter, but they don't matter to me when I'm trading, because it's so easy to misunderstand or misanalyze them. And if those fundamentals that happen and those announcements and that sort of thing, if they are going to matter, the chart structure will show it. So that's why I would always rather let the charts do the speaking rather than, the people in high up places, basically. Like I mentioned, you guys, Aster still looking fairly good. Let's take a look at the 4-hour from where I ended up entering that position with you guys. Basically, yeah. And that was another thing, you guys, just another little lesson to take from that big liquidation event, is a lot of people, and I mean, we even had it on Bitcoin, we can see it on Aster, we saw it on so many different altcoins. Not all of them did fill, to be fair. I'll go over that shortly, but a lot of times people, especially across social media, and they want to justify things, will often call these wicks scam wicks and say that, yeah, the price, since we got that buyback, we're never going that low again. I actually generally look at things the exact opposite, where if we get a big wick like that, I think that basically the price is going to trend to those levels. It's a bit of a warning where the price is heading. And that's what I was explaining live with you guys when I decided, it's time to take a long on this or start looking at a long position. I unfortunately had a bunch of orders in this green box that never filled, but that's okay. I at least got something and got into a beautiful position. Still have some take profits that we have not ended up hitting yet, but it's a risk-free position at this point. So we'll just see what happens. But yeah, my Bitcoin long and my Aster long, as far as my swing positions go, running absolutely beautifully. Right now, even Aster on the 5-minute, it does look a little bit weak, I'll give it that, but using the Trendmaster, we do have these higher trending sell signals and buy signals. So that's why I have this fib that without any indicators, it does look like it's kind of pulled in the middle of nowhere compared to how I normally do. That's just using the Trendmaster as confluence, basically. So hoping to catch some sort of a bounce out of this off of another scalp. I'm going to be trying to ladder into some positions, basically. If we end up dropping down towards my swing fail zone, I would like to try and get into something there. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. So far, like I said, I mostly care about my 4-hour swing position on something like that, just because that may be a very nice low. This is the kind of position that, yeah, I have already taken profits on a quarter of it. I have another quarter set at my next target, another quarter at my next target. But I would love to leave a quarter of that position running as a moonbag in case this market does really turn on and go absolutely parabolic. If I can catch the swing at a very, very nice low on something like that, I'm the kind of guy who I will take longs on positions like this. I would rather buy support than being all the people that you heard about on social media. And I'm sure even some of you guys had that gut feeling of, That looks like the type of thing that you want to panic sell out of a position, or you want to take a momentum short into that. But in reality, you would be selling at a buy level, right? So that's all there was to it. It's not that I necessarily felt extremely bullish on Aster. From here, we could go to zero. I don't really care. My position is covered. But, it's just treating a buy level for what it is. And that can go a long way with basic market structure, with trading, you guys. So let me catch up on the chat. Good to see so many familiar faces. That means that you guys obviously appreciate what I have to say. So thumbs up to you guys as well. Love to have you guys coming in here. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. If it goes inside the triangle, what next? So let's say we end up dropping back into the triangle. At that point, I would really like to stay above it totally. And like I said, flip that resistance into support. If we end up losing that, there is potential that we end up just basically getting a retest and ending up dumping to the downside. But I wouldn't really panic about that too much until we lose that level I was talking about on the low. I was looking at it on the 5-minute, but that's about where it would be on this 4-hour chart. That's that same little consolidation we had. As long as we can kind of stay above that, because that is basically our micro trend support, right? Since we bottomed down here, that's basically the last time we took a little pause before pushing higher. So I don't really want to lose that level. And like I said, that's around 111K. But if we can stay above that, I think things still look okay for Bitcoin. Telegram is priceless. Love your insights. Thank you so much, Swampy. Seriously appreciate that. Greatly appreciate your level-headedness, Sir Stu. Thank you so much, Gravy Train. Always love having you here, my brother. Do I build my spot bags trading pairs, for example? Oh, so like if I was building a Solana bag, comparing it to Bitcoin, for example. If I'm really confident on where we're at in the market cycle, I will compare altcoins to the Bitcoin chart. You may have noticed, especially, I think it was July, August, I was really looking at Ethereum versus Bitcoin more. But where we are right now, I've been mostly looking versus stables, just because I do have that little bearish tingling sensation until we end up invalidating my bearish theories of that 130K level, basically invalidating the 4-year cycle. At that point, I'll think that the bull market can be an extended one. But right now, mostly trading my charts versus stables, basically. Still can't access my Telegram. Oh, there is a post there for you. You can get help there from our very helpful team there. Brian, good to see you here again, my friend. As always, thumbs up for Brian, everybody. A regular on the show. Can I take a look at gold and the S&P? I will take a look at those things. First of all, I do want to look at the S&P 500. And I love to see that, the fact that it has reclaimed its buy trend. This is on the 4-hour. I want to look at the daily. Let's zoom out a little bit. So with the S&P 500, guys, we are still holding this buy trend on the daily of the MDX Trendmaster. That is a very strong uptrend. And yeah, to be quite honest, I don't really want to bet against that. I mean, not saying that the S&P and Bitcoin need to go the same direction, right? So that's why I would be treating this differently. But it is nice to see that there is some confidence in the markets in general still, because we've even broke above this high, right? So at this point, we have confirmed a new higher low on this trend, just because from this high, we do have a slightly higher high. Lowest point between the two is our confirmed higher low. So still a beautiful trend on the SPX there. And I will take a look at gold as well. I know last I checked, gold was looking pretty rough. It had a nasty double top. Let's just get to our regular colors here. So yeah, just looking at this market structure, basically looking at it for really micro analyzing. If we want to count candle bodies and not count wicks, technically this would have been our high, followed by a higher high, and we lost that structure and ended up getting our double top rejection. Whether you wanted to look at it that way or consider this where we had our micro high followed by higher high, that would mean this would have been our higher low. And either way, we ended up losing that as well. Even with this wick, same thing. If I was going to be pulling a Stuber fib, basically, I'd be pulling something like this. And you can see that there was a nasty double top there. And even if you want to go now, since we've gone a little bit lower, obviously, if we do get some sort of a bounce now, that's where we basically need to be cautious as we get back up towards resistance. So it's very possible we see some sort of a bounce, because we broke that nasty structure. It would make sense to end up coming back and retesting the highs. But again, just when we get to resistance, that's where it's time to be a little bit cautious. Whereas most people figure that, hey, it looks really strong as we start trading into resistance. That's where the FOMO kicks in. People want to start longing again. That's just where it gets dangerous. But I see potential for a bounce here. One reason is if I'm really microanalyzing what happened in this general area here, is we technically had this low here. We got a little bounce and set a lower low. So that would have confirmed this as my lower high on the trend. And we technically got above it, right? Just with a wick very quickly, but then also with our candle bodies here. So it's very possible that we end up seeing some sort of a bounce here. And we may have even, well, I guess technically we did have a little Stuber fib setup that played out here, right? If we went just by the wicks here, we set a new higher high, came back down, tested the fib box perfectly, hit our first couple of targets there. So from there, the easy one has already played out. I shouldn't really say easy because that was a tricky one. It's very mashed in there. And unless you have a very good understanding of how I look at market structure like that, it was very getting tongue-tied, very rushed, but it is technically in there. But yeah, basically until we end up breaking the highs of that, unfortunately, the major uptrend was broken. So just be cautious if we get back up to resistance with gold. I know there's the theory that, money and profits are going to basically flow from gold reaching its all-time high, going absolutely parabolic, and then getting its correction, that maybe that money's going to flow into Bitcoin. It's all very possible. That could be what we're seeing, push the price higher. But I think this is just basic charts. And you know what? If that gold does flow into Bitcoin and it does end up pushing us into a crazy new parabola, I mean, we'll see the signs once we start invalidating these bearish theories and when we get above resistance. And that's when we can start being more bullish on the overall trend. Right now, the trend is looking good on the lower time frames. Just again, understand that when we get up to resistance, please just respect resistance for what it is until it's proven otherwise, right? Everybody knows we're supposed to buy support, sell resistance, but when the time comes, you are going to see so much bullish fundamentals and FOMO happening when we get up to that resistance once again. Just be very mindful of that, right? Just like people were very bearish down here, including myself, but I still saw it as a buy level, right? That's the difference. How we trade and how we feel about what the market looks like and how we actually react to those levels are two very different things, right? So always something to be aware of there. So yeah, guys, for those of you who are interested in trading based on charts and you want to see more examples of basically how I'm doing some of my favorite trading strategies, some of my trade setup ideas, just more examples of how I look at market structure and pull fibs and just my overall thoughts on the market. If that is something that interests you, do yourselves a favor, scan the QR code on the screen, get in my Telegram channel. And as well, guys, also have started a open Discord where you can get all of the signals from my Telegram channel for full transparency. However, there will be about a 3-day delay on my posts, as this is a bit of a sneak peek into the Telegram. There is a link down below for that as well, for those who are interested. And Yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today, guys. So once again, if you appreciated this live stream and you appreciate these live streams with me, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And with that, thank you so much for being here and watching with me once again, my friends. I'm out. Stay safe, my friends.